What if the reason you feel stressed, distracted, and disrespected is because you react to everything? And what if the real power comes from doing nothing at all? Most people think power comes from speaking louder, proving themselves, defending their name, winning every argument. But that's not power. That's emotional dependency. Every time you react impulsively, you're giving something away. Your attention, your energy, your control. And here's the truth most people never realize. Reaction is submission in disguise. Because the moment someone can control your emotions, they control your behavior. And when they control your behavior, they control your life. That's why the most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest. It's the one who stays calm, unbothered, unmoved. Psychology calls this emotional regulation. But in real life, it looks like silence. It looks like restraint. It looks like someone who doesn't need to prove anything because they already understand something most people don't. Not everything deserves a response. In fact, most things don't. Think about this. You post something online, and someone leaves a negative comment. Maybe they misunderstand you. Maybe they insult you. Maybe they try to provoke you. Your first instinct? Reply, defend, correct, explain, because your brain sees it as a threat. Your ego wants control. But here's what actually happens when you react. You enter their frame. You lower yourself into their space. You give them exactly what they wanted, your attention. Now imagine the opposite. You see the comment and you do nothing. No reply, no reaction, no energy given. At first, it feels uncomfortable, like you're losing, like you're weak. But something interesting happens. They lose power. Because without your reaction, there is no interaction, and without interaction, there is no control. Silence becomes dominance, not because you ignored them, but because you controlled yourself. Humans are wired for reaction. It's survival. When something challenges you, your brain activates, fight, defend, respond. But in modern life, most threats are not physical. They're emotional, social, digital. And reacting to these threats doesn't protect you, it drains you. Every unnecessary reaction costs you mental energy, focus, time, clarity. And over time, this creates a life where you're constantly pulled in different directions, always responding, never leading. That's why high-level individuals train one skill above everything else: selective attention. They choose what deserves their energy, and more importantly, what doesn't. Because power is not about doing more, it's about reacting less. You're in a conversation. Someone says something slightly disrespectful, not direct, but enough to trigger you. You feel it immediately. Your body tightens. Your mind starts forming a comeback. You want to respond, prove a point, set a boundary. But instead, you pause. You don't react instantly. You observe. And in that pause, you gain control. Because now, you're not acting from emotion, you're acting from awareness. And sometimes the strongest response is no response. Because not every comment deserves your intelligence, and not every situation deserves your presence. If you want to master the power of not reacting, start here. 1. Delay your response. Create space between trigger and reaction. Even 5 seconds changes everything. Pause, breathe, observe. Control begins in that gap. Ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Not your attention, not your time, your energy. Because energy is your most valuable resource. Most reactions are ego-driven. You're not defending truth, you're defending identity. And identity is fragile when it depends on others. Let go of needing to be right. Focus on being in control. Ignoring is not weakness, it's filtering. Not everything is worth engaging. Some people are not looking for understanding, they're looking for reaction. Don't give it to them. The less you need approval, the less you react. Because your worth is no longer tied to external opinions. You don't need to prove, you don't need to respond, you don't need to explain. You just are. Here's something uncomfortable. People who trigger you expose you. They reveal where you're still reactive, where your emotions are still externally controlled, where your identity is still dependent. That's why ignoring is powerful. Not because of them, but because of what it builds in you. Self-control, discipline, emotional independence. And these are the traits that separate average from dangerous. Let me leave you with this. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to respond to every opinion. You don't need to prove your worth to people who don't see it. Real power is quiet. It doesn't chase. It doesn't react. It chooses. So the next time something triggers you, pause and ask yourself, am I reacting or am I in control? Because the moment you stop reacting is the moment you start leading your life. Be honest. What's one situation where you reacted and wished you didn't? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it.